ancient days of Dionysus, they gathered under the moonlight, wine in their cups, women on their arms, and songs upon their lips. Pleasure wasn't a sin, you see. It was a sacrament. In the far older temples of Isis, priestesses poured blue lotus and mad honey, wrapped kings and warriors alike in silks, and transmuted their wounds through touch, through breath, and through the alchemy of the body. Centuries later, rebellion took a different name. We called it sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was the anthem of souls crying out and refusing to be tamed by a cannibalistic system based on exploitation and consumption. Today, these same doors, sex, psychedelics, and magic, are still feared, shamed, and outlawed. Yet they remain the most powerful portals we have ever walked through for healing, for awakening, and becoming. Here at Tantric Awakening, we couldn't just stop at sexuality. No, that wasn't controversial enough. So this week we're going to tackle all three of the holy heresies: sex, psychedelics, and magic. But as portals to liberation, what happens when we stop locking these doors and instead dare to step through?
Welcome to a new paradigm, a new way of being, free from shame, self-limitation, or cultural programming. Welcome to a new you, a new world, full of endless possibilities. Welcome to your Tantric Awakening.
Welcome to the Tantric Awakening podcast. My name is Andre Knight.
And I'm Kendall.
And so society calls them sins.
Mm-hmm.
History called them sacraments. The three most heretical acts in modern culture: open sexuality, psychedelic exploration, and magic, witchcraft, voodoo, anything supernatural. Right? Today we're going to make a case for the bold premise that these are not sins, these are not heresies to avoid, but these may actually be the greatest tools we've ever seen for healing, for awakening, and for the return to self.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kendall, what happens when, instead of shaming these practices, and we'll get into the history and where the shame started to grow out, but let's start with what happens if we instead embrace them with reverence and skill?
So many things happen. I feel the biggest catalyst of any human is to lean into anything that you're suppressing or repressing. So for me, these doors have been opened by fate, by meeting you, by divine orchestration of my soul being ready to go to that next level. And not only my soul, but my mind yearning for more. My mind yearning for an experience that was beyond the mundane or the everyday or even the earth-based energy. I wanted to lean into the more, which was mysticism, which was the unknown, which for me has been terrifying at times. But yeah, it's been a journey of remembering and giving myself permission to embrace the sovereignty that is my own ability to make choices that are best for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is really it. It's the common view is that historically, when they had, the Saturnia festivals, the Dionysian festivals, that it was about escapism, that their lives were so miserable that they were allowed to party and have festivities for 2 weeks as a form of escapism. But from everything I've been reading and preparing for this episode, they really viewed it as a way of connecting directly to life force more fully. Like quite the opposite of escapism, but like embracism. It was really about, because royalty and peasants partied side by side. They got rid of their status, they got rid of their identities, they got rid of themselves. And it was just human connecting to human. It was literally an exercise in dissolving ego and self, which in the modern day, the reason psychedelics are employed in therapy is the same reason hypnotherapy is involved in therapy. Actually, it's the dissolving of the self. It's a chance to step outside of yourself and view yourself and your situation more objectively. And it was, everything I'm reading is about reconnecting more fully with life rather than removing yourself from it. It's not like today we use alcohol to numb. You know, they used a completely different alchemy for a completely different purpose. And it was to allow them to feel more.
Yeah, I also feel, in leading into that feeling more, it's an opportunity, I feel, to connect with others and empathize. And wildly for me, when I think about temple, or when I think about these festivals that did happen, granted, they happened in different periods and with specific intentions, like allowing, different classes of people to come together. At the core of it, like, you hit it the nail on the head, right? Of, it's there to dissolve the barriers that allow us to be human to human. And these social constructs, these institutions that have enabled, for example, capitalism to, go rampant and unchecked, is essentially, like, I feel the temple priestesses, what these festivals perhaps opened in the consciousness of many, was permission to enjoy life. And, there's so much to what you even said, like temple. There's a difference between temple as a means to escape, and then there's temple to feel even more deeply. That's a huge point you just mentioned.
And to put it contextually, we're talking about 300 to 400 years BC, before Christ.
Yeah.
Though we believe that these Dionysian practices came to Greece from much older Minoan and Mycenaean cultures. And it was about 100 years before Christ that the Romans converted Dionysus to Bacchus. The festivals of exploring the body basically became the Roman orgies, where hedonism, which is slightly different than debauchery implies excess. Hedonism actually comes from the Greek goddess Hedone, who is the daughter of Eros, the god of love, and Psyche, the goddess of the soul. Love and the soul came together and gave us Hedone, the goddess of joy and pleasure. That's where our word hedonism comes from. It doesn't have a negative connotation. It implies a goddess who brought people joy. Right? And then that gets later converted to hedonism, which is a derogatory term. Debauchery specifically implies excess. And that's kind of where the Romans took it then, until the Senate finally outlawed it shortly before the time of Jesus and the birth of Christianity. And from there, we kind of know the rest of the story. The descent into sin and taboo, where these were things that were dangerous and to be avoided. Interestingly enough, I looked up the origin of the word taboo as well. And it comes from Polynesian cultures, Fiji, Tonga, places like that, where it meant something to be revered, something sacred. Not something dangerous, but something to be treated with reverence. Because it was sacred, because it was powerful. That's the origin of the word taboo, which became taboo when Captain James Cook brought it to England in the late 1700s. But that's what originally meant, something sacred to be treated with reverence, just like the sacral chakra.
And I think that's the difference between a temple and something like overly indulging where there's no reverence. There's both and, because I truly believe in history, priestesses have not always been honored or revered inside of those spaces. So I think it's important to make that distinction.
Absolutely.
Especially because in modern day, I have experienced that distinction. And it's remembering for any woman that is on that path of being a priestess and walking that, it's, you know, the difference.
Well, I think it's important to speak into what temple is and what temple is not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have some vague ideas, but there's a lot of assumptions. You know, just because there was some sensual or sexual act, namely in the context of healing performed, or in a person rediscovering their connection to their own body, we assume they were brothels, right? They were not brothels. It's like everything has, all three of these powerful medicines that we're speaking into have a powerful healing side. And then they have the inverted side, which just siphons energy from you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is with sexuality as a healing form
Mm-hmm.
and sexuality as it's practiced today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the exploitation, objectification, porn of it. You know, that's the perverted version of it. To pervert means to take something that is holy and make it unholy. That's literally what the word means. Drugs, whereas they were used for centuries by shaman and holy men to guide people on deep journeys, certainly, you know, we see drug abuse today. We see chemicals that harm you instead of open you. There's both kinds out there, the good and the bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is with magic. Magic can be used in a positive way or a destructive way of self and others.
Yeah. There is absolutely an inverted reality that is operating and can be operating in any space of time, any industry. And I think it requires discernment and an awareness of what energy is operating. And I can speak into so many aspects of life where I've experienced the inverted reality. You know, I could speak into, for example, sexuality, sex itself, right? The inverted reality was the agreement I had made with the teachings I was being taught for so many years in the Christian world that I needed to suppress my sexuality until marriage. And that inverted reality had consequences, right? And so I believe that inverted reality, though, because my soul came here to experience the opposite, right? I was able to understand the contrast and the contrast of what did that inverted reality make me feel? How did it manifest? And how did it show up in my life? And I can think about even the years where I was a teenager, for example. The inversion of sex itself caused me as a young teenager to just not even give that a place in my life. It was like a dehumanizing area, which I feel like has been a power grab amongst a lot of industries, a power grab to prey on people's insecurities or make them feel like somehow sex is wrong and can't be embraced or celebrated in any aspect of life. And so it really comes down to, I think, the lack of leadership and the lack of accountability to that. I mean, I could think about the Netherlands. I can think about America, right? Two places in the world where, you know, America doesn't even allow for that, the proper sex education. So instead of empowered parenting, where parents are taking that responsibility on their hands, they're giving it away to the church. So a lot of people are doing that. Whereas, like, for example, Amsterdam or Netherlands, for example, by kindergarten, they're learning about their bodies. They're learning about boundaries. So I think this is an institutional problem and epidemic that is continue to perpetuate taboo. I mean, it would be interesting to interview such people, but it would be really interesting to interview kids that were raised in the Netherlands about sacred sexuality. And I think I've watched a video on this online, but it's very apparent by where you're raised of how this impacts your perception or experience of just even exploring it, right? The innocence of play. So yeah, it's powerful to recognize that, even for myself and self-reflecting and before you guys. It's like, it's deeper than I think you and I. It's a human justice issue as well, because I feel every human being has the right to be a human being. I believe every human has a right to explore what some higher power gave us all, which were not only a heart, not only a mind, but a soul, and also body parts that explore the nervous system and are the nervous system that bring about pleasure. I think that's just a non-negotiable.
So I took the liberty of looking it up while you were speaking,
Mm-hmm.
and the latest data we have is for 2017.
Mm-hmm.
But I compared the rate of reported rapes in Amsterdam,
Mm-hmm.
which is 2.2 per 100,000 people
Mm-hmm.
for an entire year.
Mm-hmm.
2 rapes per 100,000 people. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
one is one too many, but 2. For the same 100,000 people for the same year in Los Angeles, according to LAPD data, which we have from 2022, 36.2 forcible rapes per 100,000 people, 18 times more.
Mm-hmm.
Emphasis on the reported. There's an asterisk that says due to cultural differences, a far lower percentage of the population is likely to report the incident. So the number should actually be tripled.
Mm-hmm.
So about 100 per 100,000 compared to 2. A rate 50 times higher. That is the end result of making things shameful, sinful, and we're so afraid of them, we're not even going to discuss them openly, but suppress them.
Fear leads to control. When you are afraid of yourself in any capacity, you're afraid to speak up, you're afraid to speak your needs, you're afraid that your past might, manifest itself in the future because that's what you witnessed your parents doing. It can lend itself to a lack of, there's this like psychosis of fear trying to power grab his control. And it's not okay.
That's exactly it. Fear and also shame, which is a way of fear yourself. We've talked about it before, divide and conquer. You want to rule a people, divide and conquer. Divide them based on the color of their skin, their religion, their gender, whatever else you can think of. What about dividing them from themselves, from their basic energies, their basic urges?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that you speak into this because the other word that kind of ties into this whole conversation is heresy, right? The biggest sin you could ever commit against the church, right? They would burn you at the stake. Heresy comes to us from the Greek word heresies, which means to make a choice, specifically to choose your own path wisely. That's what heresy means. It wasn't until authorities started dictating what is the proper way to live your life and the proper way, the proper path to follow, the only one is ours, that choosing your own path, you see, became a crime. Suddenly the word meant to commit a crime when all it simply meant was to choose your own path.
And to choose your own path requires critical thinking and courage. And I think a lot of people who are not in their power are giving their power away to these institutions, to their families of origin, because they're afraid to rewrite the script. And I'll be the first to say, like, I understand that fear. I understand what it can cost you. I mean, if you've been on this podcast long enough, you know my story where it's like, I chose sacred sexuality. I chose being the sex educator because I knew this is what was right. I knew it was right to stand for what was right. So
you felt it in your bones, right?
it was intuitive, and I didn't question it. I knew the difference between right and wrong, and I know sexual abuse is not okay, right? And so I was willing to advocate that for that. And I can speak into that being reflective of, that connection to Libra energy, like the heart of justice. And when you feel that strongly, the need for justice, it's like that mother bear, that lioness goddess energy really comes online, that mother archetype. And I think that's
right,
a level of maturity that I personally have gained. And I think it's needed more than anything. And I think even with the whole people not speaking up, I think it's because there's an epidemic as well of not enough people speaking up, not enough women calling out toxic masculinity and toxic femininity out of fear. And, you know, there's so many emasculation of men, for example, by women. There's a lot of hate projected upon men and, you know, vice versa. And it's like, until we can have a heart chakra revolution, we're going to continue just living in the lower dimensions. And I think that's why, for example, I believe America is behind some of these nations around the world that are more inclusive, more community oriented, where, you know, healthcare is not skyrocketing through the roof and people are barely getting by. You know, it's where the Netherlands, for example, they value something. And because of that, like, the people are being supported by it. Like, it's normal. And so, yeah, it's very passionate. Like, when I think about heresy and, like, what was the definition you said again?
To
like,
choose your own path.
Oh, a heresy, to choose your own path. Like, to choose your own path is why you're here. Like,
right.
You're here to recognize what is true for you and own it. And here's the thing, beloved, that I see. I think the biggest problems come from when you don't choose your own path, you project and you blame others. This is the energy that is the problem, is when you're not taking ownership of your truth, when you don't know what your needs are, what your wants are, what your fantasies are, and you don't own them. You are giving that power away to something outside of yourself, waiting for a savior. That's the savior complex. That is the whole Yeshua inverted Christ consciousness of you giving your power away to such entity in order for someone to come save you. No.
Well, this is the other big inversion of the church as they took power and control. Yes, it wasn't just sexuality. It was looking outside of yourself for salvation and divinity instead of within yourself. The kingdom of heaven is within, right? They taught us to give our power away. We became disciples instead of devotees. A devotee is devoted to truth, right? A disciple is waiting for a leader or guru to lead them somewhere.
I also feel like a guru or a leader because I consider us very much on that path of leadership, right? We are leaders. I also think it's very important to recognize, I think for me personally, it's really important that the people that believe in us, that are following us, people that are here trusting us, that are leaning into this podcast, like the hope is that you, in the support system, in the giving of the skills, you gain that courage to lead yourself.
Well, that's it. That's it.
You know what I mean?
We may share some historical context and some information that we've gleaned through our own life experiences or work with our clients, but ultimately the call is to you to listen to your heart and lead yourself. That's exactly it. We're not looking for followers. We are here looking for leaders who are ready to rise.
You know, I know this was not, it's interesting because I keep hearing it in my heart. The biggest taboo, even underlying all this, the taboo of having a heart open. And what I mean by that is I feel like there has been such a, because of all this, right? Fear and oh, what if, blah, 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 blah. I think there's a taboo of what if I had kept my heart open? What if I allowed myself to feel? What if I allowed myself to allow the energy of God within me to be a transmutable force? I mean, I've said this many times with you.
To become a force unto yourself.
Well, that's the thing, right? You know, Jesus, didn't want worshipers. He wanted you to find your own power, because here's the thing.
Even greater miracles than I shall ye perform.
I've said this many times, even with you, of like the turning point. I'll never forget it, but the turning point was having my first conscious orgasm. You know, back when I was in college and studying abroad in London, I had my first orgasm and I was like, this is power. And this is what I've been seeking. I mean, there's one thing to like find your power reserves outside of you. And granted, like I was finding power from external experiences, people, and I was surrounded by so many people. And then I realized, wow, like the reservoir is myself. is my own autonomy, is my own temple. I am a temple. And that's the thing that, like, for me, when it, connecting to just, for example, Christianity, they don't want you connected to your temple. They want you to suppress it. They don't want you to explore it until a certain time period, and that puts people into like it's abusive to say you need to be married in order to explore. No, F you.
And even then, it's for the pleasure of your partner.
Right.
The
and then
focus
people
is
don't know
never
what
on
to
yourself.
do. People don't know what to do. They don't know how to, love themselves, let alone love their partner's heart and even their body or spirit.
Because if they would unleash a force far more powerful than any church and any government.
And maybe they would realize they don't really need those intermediaries between them and
the divine.
divinity.
That's it. That's why it's always been suppressed and controlled, precisely because it is so potent and so effective.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly my premise.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope we're piquing your interest, you guys. If
Mm-hmm.
you feel that call of exploring this space or one day training to be a facilitator and healer within this space, that's who we're calling into our temple.
Mm-hmm.
Please click the link in the description below and join our mailing list. You can decide which topics you're interested or not interested in hearing about. Okay? So take a moment. Please subscribe to this channel. Share it with somebody whose interest might be piqued by this as well. And take a moment to join our list so that we can continue the conversation beyond just today.
Mm-hmm.
I want to take us back to some of the early origins of these temples.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to go further back in time, about 2600 BC, into the old kingdom of Egypt, when the worship of Isis first began to emerge.
Mm-hmm.
And we associate her with Egypt, but what a lot of people don't realize is she had temples in Greece, in Rome, and even as far as Britain.
Mm-hmm.
We found artifacts following the Roman colonization.
Mm-hmm.
They brought her with them. Isis was the goddess of magic, of fertility, of motherhood. You mentioned what the earth is really missing now is that mothering energy, of healing, and of sacred sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
This is what her temples were dedicated to.
Mm-hmm.
Sexuality is very prevalent in the themes surrounding Isis. And in most of the depictions we see, I mean, every Egyptian temple we've unearthed to date has some depiction of blue lotus, which is a psychedelic plant, on its walls. Every temple we've unearthed. But the temples of Isis and the temples of Hathor, the two that are known to be temples where sacred sexuality was taught and practiced, are covered floor to ceiling with depictions of not just priestesses holding blue lotus or smelling blue lotus or giving it to others to smell.
Mm-hmm.
In the other hand, they're holding a jar of oil or a bowl. And we believe this to be mad honey that the philosophers used in Greece and the oracles used in Greece.
Mm-hmm.
So they combined these two known psychedelics
Mm-hmm.
and anointed people with them. You know, we don't have to guess. It's depicted on the temple walls. And then they engaged in song and dance. And the premises of Tantra, we know, are breath, sound, and movement. The word priestess literally means one who dances in a temple to connect directly to God.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally what it translates. The Egyptian word for priestess translates into. So they were pretty clear. And we have archaeologists today trying to whitewash it and colonize it all. Oh, no, that's not at all what they were doing. They were taking psychedelics and enjoying each other and reaching higher realms of consciousness by exploring their bodies and their connection to between bodies and energy. Because what does sexual arousal bring? What does sensual titillation bring? It excites your energy. It gets it moving.
And it's, yes, sexuality. And it is also the journey of you surrendering into the medicine itself so it can reveal what is already there. It's revealing what is there that perhaps has been hidden or that you have needed support in to let go of. And that's what it helps in. It helps to weave these energies together so that practitioners like myself and you and priestesses that are supported by us in training, that they can come into that space and recognize even places where they have numbed so much of themselves, so much of their sacral, so much of their heart because of the past. Because here's the thing, if you want to become a channel, and I'm a channeler, and you've witnessed this many times, a channel of energies, of Isis and various, beings. It's like it requires you to surrender into being a vessel, because we're not just here in this time and space. We are opening up a portal in order to access, energies or directions so that we can continue to be on our dharma, right? So it's yes, sexuality, but it's also like, how deep can you be in your humanity? And that's what I love about, when I think about temple, it's like, it cuts through the noise. It cuts through all of that fog, all of that shadow that you continue to perpetuate as your normal.
Mm-hmm. No, that's absolutely it. This wasn't just for the indulgence and exploration of, profanity. The focus was always on acts of transmutation. A lot of the rites we know symbolize death and rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
Transmutation. We show them emerging with wings or with symbols over their heads that symbolize gods.
Mm-hmm.
A fully awakened, embodied human. And it's interesting, this wasn't isolated to only Egypt. Because around the same time in the Andes Mountains in what would become Peru, the predecessors to the Incan culture, the people who actually built Machu Picchu, they consumed a sacred cactus called 𝗔𝗄𝗸𝗢, which when the white colonists came here, the Spaniards, they renamed it to St. Pedro, after St. Peter, San Pedro. But 𝗔𝗄𝗎 is its original name. It has an effect very, very similar to modern day MDMA or ecstasy. And this is actually before psilocybin mushrooms, before cannabis. The oldest use of psychedelic substances we have is these Andean cultures consuming this 𝗔𝗄𝗎 cactus, which in their original language, catch this, means head remover. It gets you out of your head. Think of what modern day MDMA does. It gets you out of your head and into your body. It gets you out of your ego and into pure presence, pure existence. This is the oldest, confirmed by archaeology proof we have of psychedelic use.
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, we live in a society predominantly in the head. We're overthinking, we're overstimulated, we're doom scrolling, we're bombarded by information and not enough coming into the heart. And here's the thing, practicing being in the heart is like any muscle being worked at the gym, for example. You are more than just this physical body. You are energy. You have chakras that either are blocked or open or balanced. And it's interesting, the more and more we do temple and support people, the more I notice these energies. And I'm like, wow, and
they've
as a
always
priestess,
been there waiting.
Yeah. And it's always like me as a priestess being like, wow, okay, I'm the type of person, I'm the type of person that I see that and I'm like, that's that Pluto conjunct my moon in Scorpio. I'm like, let's go there. Let me press in that and bring all that up so we can face it. Because I think what it is people just are afraid to face themselves. That's why mirror work is a huge part of what we do. But but mirror, when you're seeing yourself, that's where that, honestly, the ego can step aside and you're humbled. And I don't know about you, but I feel like humility is huge in this work, especially in the path. You really cannot self-actualize yourself unless you're willing to face yourself. And if you're not willing to face yourself, you're still susceptible to all these energies outside of you or to the taboos that are projected. Aren't they just projected constructs of the mind to keep people under submission?
Pretty much.
It's hell no.
Every system of control relies on people that are not fully empowered.
Mm-hmm.
That's why these things are suppressed. The reason sex is dangerous is because it grants sovereignty over your body and over your own pleasure. So it instantly disrupts control systems that are rooted in shame. Basically, psychedelics, the reason they're illegal is because they dissolve your ego and they dismantle all illusions of hierarchy. You no longer fall for that shit.
Yeah, and in pathogens too. Yeah.
Especially on pathogens like MDMA.
Yeah.
You know, because that's not an ethnogen, that's not a psychedelic.
Right.
It's a distinct group called an empathogen, which does what? It opens your heart. It helps you feel yourself and others more fully. How dangerous we should make that illegal.
Well, here's the thing. And I've looked at studies of this before, but it's an accessing of the brain. Like so many people are not accessing parts of their brain to allow for that serotonin to be in balance with other chemicals in their brain and allow for that empathy and allow for that heart opener. And so that's what MDMA comes in, and it's allowing for you to access parts of you that you just don't allow in on a day-to-day basis. But over time, and this is what I love about Temple and utilizing, for example, these empathogens, is it's allowing that muscle to be developed over time.
Yes.
So that it's normal. I've received this recognition from a fellow priestess, for example, of like, how do you hold this energy? Practice. Like anything, you have to practice holding energy in your own energy field and not the siphoned energy.
What do we practice instead? Sitting on the subway next to a stranger and not once making eye contact with them because you're each in your phones. Like it feels like there's been a direct war on magic throughout history and witchcraft. There's been a direct war on empathy. We live today in an empathy-starved society because a society that is empathic would never condone poverty, unequal distribution of wealth and resources, technologies that can be life-saving. No, they would never condone that. They would never condone war or harms against other cultures or neighbors or any kind of discrimination. And they certainly wouldn't condone the raping of Mother Earth, the destruction of the environment.
Yeah.
Almost all of today's problems that we are facing stem from a lack of empathy.
Yeah.
We have shut off our hearts and we've made illegal the very things that open them. 𝗏𝗚𝗎, MDMA, sassafras.
You know what's become so normal is judgment. And I'll be the first to say, like, especially being part of the church, you're trained to judge because there's that hierarchy that's built and bred into you. Like
hierarchy.
Let's breathe this into you. So there's like your ego becomes inflated and you think you're better than the rest. And yeah, it's that judgment, speaking of, if you have a lack of empathy, there's likely a lack of self-love and reverence for who you are as a soul and lack of understanding and being seen as a soul. So it's just easier to judge others. And, I've noticed this, especially as I've matured so much over the years, but like have so much respect for myself, like that judgment energy, I could feel it so deeply. I can even feel it so deeply nowadays where people don't have empathy. And it's interesting. It's such an interesting dance, especially on the priestess path.
And this is why psychedelics are dangerous, because they dissolve that ego. That brings us to magic, the third
dangerous in a good way.
Yeah. The third big taboo. The third holy heresy, if you will. Magic. The reason this is dangerous is because it teaches you self-trust, self-reliance. You're not a victim of your environment, but you can interact with and help shape your environment. It puts the control back into you because you realize you have an ability to co-create together with reality.
In the magical.
Specifically what you're speaking into. That's why it became so dangerous. We suddenly turned wise women into witches and we burned them. We silenced their wisdom.
Yes, and that's important to acknowledge. And here's the thing I would say with regards to magic. And I learned this over the years, but in just my observation of myself, but also my reclamation and on the path of being a priestess. so many women have been domesticated, not only just domesticated, but put themselves in domestication roles, and they don't
willingly
challenge them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't challenge them or allow themselves permission to choose a different path. Instead, they just complain that this is their role. And here's the thing, like, magic is created when you allow for it to be in your world. When you recognize you don't have to be just the workaholic or this certain archetype. You get to find and create the magic in your day every single day. And there really is no excuse. And I can think about when I started my magical rituals years and years ago, when I started doing womb rituals. No one told me what to do. I just knew that there has to be something more to just me having blood coming out of my body every month. I just knew there was something more. So I did deeper research, and I allowed myself to find the magic around my womb and what does blood represent. And
what
I looked
so many
deeper.
women are taught to be ashamed of.
And so that's the thing I would say. Whatever prompts shame in you, oh, that's gross, or whatever you've been projected upon by your mother or your father or whoever, that is a doorway for you to reclaim.
Mm-hmm.
Not only for yourself, but ancestrally, because here's the thing, if you don't, you're going to pass that down to your children or to your, as an aunt to the people in your life. Doesn't matter which role. It's just like you get to choose sovereignly who you are. If you want to stand for taboo and continue to perpetuate taboo, go for it. But like, we stand in that space of like, we call people higher, like transmute the taboos, make your taboos your liberators. So you're liberated in that space of divinity where like you're not touched anymore by that social construct or fear-based siphoning. I mean, think about the Matrix. Or the movies, what is the Matrix, where they're like sucking this life energy out of these people in their pods. They're not even conscious. They're just they're moving through the motions. Like, you have to slow down and
well, it was
to
designed
understand.
to be a metaphor. Yeah, absolutely.
It's what that movie is trying to wake people up to.
These systems, they survive and thrive on obedience, on numbness, and on separation. That's what they need to survive. And it's interesting that you mentioned the word liberation, because literally in ancient Tibetan texts, there's several steps on the way to enlightenment. Everybody talks about becoming enlightened. But you have awakening, where you become aware of these truths. And then you have specifically a step called liberation on the way to enlightenment. Absolutely. And this is why I say these practices, pleasure itself, right? The goddess Hedone, what she brought us was a gift to lead us to our awakening through our liberation and eventually our enlightenment.
Yes, and also you need to be able to receive that liberation. And if people come into your life that you're like, oh yeah, they're here to help lead me into my liberation, lean into that. I mean, that's why we're so open and bold about it. Like, if you're called to be a sovereign facilitator of magical rituals and temple ceremonies and want to be held accountable in that, please lean in, because we have really high standards in that. And like, I think about my Saturnian influence, like the leaders of tomorrow are being presented with opportunities today. And I mean, I work amongst children. When I look into those children's eyes, I think about what kind of world will those young souls be walking into 10, 20 years from now. And I don't know about you, but like, I think as a millennial, for example, so many millennials have gone through so many portals of like, what the fuck energies, right? Where so much shit has been handed to so many of us. I mean, it didn't even matter generation. I'm just saying, like, yet the energy and life will continue to happen. It's a matter of like, what kind of person are you going to be moving forward? Because these taboos need to be alchemized in order for a new earth to birth. And I think you nailed it on the head. Like, mother energy is holy. Like, the divine feminine is holy, and the necessary divine union between these energies, healthy masculine energy and healthy feminine energy, is absolutely essential. And I think that's what you and I have cultivated so deeply. There's a self-reverence, like I love myself, and there's another reverence. I revere who you are as a man, and together it's like it blows off in the best way, and that's what's needed more than ever.
And we've seen it not only with each other, we've seen it with clients too.
Yeah.
There are certain clients that there's a natural mutual reverence for instantly. Us with them with us. And I've noticed, like, the ones who are bold, who are brave, who let their curiosity lead them, and they dive into these forbidden realms, right, of magic, of psychedelic exploration, and yes, even sexual exploration. Like, their progress is tremendous. You know, and we have other groups of clients that we wouldn't even feel necessarily proper bringing topics like this up with. You know, or when we have, they just haven't quite nibbled. It hasn't bitten their interest. There hasn't been a lot of follow through. And we see them month after month after month struggling with the same patterns and the same issues. You know, it's like literally, you know, we have tools that are more effective. Why are we not embracing them? Why are we not using them en masse, you know? Instead, we're outlawing them. But like we've seen firsthand how one group progresses versus the other. I'm reminded of a combat Marine that I worked with for PTSD. And we went on a guided journey. And he told me he got more out of the session than the 5 years he spent in the VA mental health clinic. Would you rather be in a mental institution for 5 years? Or have one night that totally transmutes that energy and transforms you from the inside out?
We've experienced it and we've seen it. And I absolutely believe that's our medicine. We're very good at it. And I could speak to you being a great role model in that to me. It's what has brought us together. I mean, I think about 𝗔𝘄𝗸𝗢𝗍 and her partner. They worked together to create something that was transformative for the long haul, that can help, you know, help bring to the conscious mind the reality of the suppression of the energies that have been keeping people in self-sabotage, so that they can become the best version of themselves. And that's what we are. It's like we are rising up that ship. We are leading a movement. We are here and then inviting people into that, because it is wild, you know, and I get it. I faced my fears along the journey. I mean, my gosh, so many of my fears have come to the forefront. And yet I have experienced the power. It is straight up power. It is straight up recognition, because it's just.
But power to be treated with reverence, because it is powerful. Not because it's dangerous and to be feared, not if you use it with reverence. And that is exactly the word taboo.
And I think when you think about like danger, you know, that word, when it comes, I think there is a danger when people utilize some things and not treat it with the reverence. I think it's important to mention, you know.
Well, that's why in ancient times, temples. This was practiced in temples.
And initiates were trained.
Yeah.
For the purpose of spiritual, in a way, spiritual support, spiritual mothering, I feel. Like, I feel like the high priestess, as a high priestess, is there to support the souls of their evolution and to call them higher. And I also believe that there's a sovereign protection and duty as a high priestess in such spaces to know when initiates are not ready, or when there needs to be, you know, redirection for various souls. It's like, and as I've really felt this lately, it's like not everyone's called to the priestess path. It is a calling, and it is a devotional showing up all the time to your own inner world, and also being able to hold energetic energy that is sometimes intense.
Well, as a doc and an energy healer, yeah, I can absolutely speak into that. It's not something you do. It's not something you pursue. It's just something you are. And of course, you seek every opportunity to get around people that can help you further your craft and get even better at it. But it's something it requires training and development, but it's really, it's who you are already and just amplifying it. You know, and you're right. It does take a lot of experience. In our school, for example, we follow the tradition. It's a year and a day per degree. You work with us for a year. People are like, what's the course? What's the curriculum? It depends on the student. It's very bespoke. We work with each person or each couple individually
Mm-hmm.
for a year and a day per degree.
And then there's an evaluation. We help see if that going to a next level would be supportive.
You learn to support other priests and priestesses in ritual and ceremony.
If that's the call.
Then, if that's your calling. I mean, the people that go through the school.
Mm-hmm.
Some people
Yeah.
just want coaching or guidance from a priestess
Mm-hmm.
or priest.
Mm-hmm.
Some feel it is their calling to become one. Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
So what you can expect, the first degree is all about assisting other priests and priestesses in ritual. The second degree is about leading your own rituals. And the third degree gives you the power to create your own rituals.
And you know what I love about you and I together, because it's such a great tag team, but what I love, and I've been doing so many readings about this, but it's so wonderful to be able to look at a soul's blueprint, for example, through an astrology deep dive reading, and I can actually see what your soul is leaning into for that year. And that's the beautiful thing. It's like we know this wisdom so deeply that it applies to how we approach everything that we're leaning into with you, right? Because like, you know, for example, if we have someone that's in their perfection year is in the 9th year, and ironically in the 9th year of, numerology, right? That person is specifically in the shedding year. They're really in the disillusion, ready to let go so they can begin again. If I didn't know that information as a high priestess, I wouldn't know how to necessarily guide you in such the first year. So that's what it makes us stand out and differentiate, is that we embody that esoteric knowledge in order to understand how to best support you if you're on, for example, a path of becoming a priestess, because you chose the path you're on.
Well, the ancient Egyptian, Mesopotamian, Aztec, Mayan, Incan temples are all aligned with the stars.
Mm-hmm.
So it would make sense that their priestesses and priests were well aware of astrology. And I'm going to say astrology, not just astronomy, okay? Because there is a difference, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Astronomy studies space, where the planets and galaxies are positioned relative to each other. Astrology studies time and cycles. Very different.
Yes, times and cycles, and also understanding when you were born. Very, very layered, but when you were born in your natal chart, for example, what the planets were communicating to you as a soul and your personality, but also understanding, for example, where you are in your birthday dictates kind of how the year will be and like what themes may come up. I mean, it's all like free will and how you approach it. And also like there's the progress chart that I love going into with people. It's helping people understand, okay, like your sun is progressing every 30 years in a certain sign, depending on what part of that 30 digit cycle for each house is, but also understanding where in your progressed moon every 2.5 years, your soul is going through a different initiation. It goes for introverted, extroverted, depending on which element. And that's huge. When I leaned into astrology and I realized, oh my gosh, like those moments, perhaps you felt it before too, when you're like, why do I feel so different from last month to this month? Like, why? I feel like I'm a new person. It's because your soul is growing. You are here to go through the initiations. And it's really beautiful to be able to look at a chart too, because you also can see if someone's like a younger soul and an older soul. It's also really helpful to know what this soul is coming to learn in this lifetime, and that's really cool. It's really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me excited, especially like, for example, connecting with the priestess tomorrow. And it's like, I know she's a very mystical, old soul who is here to translate the unseen world, the dream world. She is a priestess of that caliber. And I know that information. I'm going to relay that information, but it's an acknowledgement. And that's what I think the priestesses of ancient Egypt and all over these places, they knew the language of the stars so they can recognize each other.
Absolutely.
There's a recognition. Even the other day, we had a connection time with a fellow priestess. There was recognition of like, oh, okay.
And reverence.
Yeah. And it was just, okay, we're here to remember. I acknowledge you. Let's do the work. And that's where it was. It was like, let's get going. We're here.
And there wasn't any hesitation.
No, not like.
It just felt right.
And that's when I know and I can recognize a fellow priestess is on that path. You just know.
Every time we've guided people through these doors, Kendall, I've watched masks drops, trauma release, and just a truer self emerge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about what temple is not.
Yeah.
Because I feel that's important.
Mm-hmm.
I would maybe start by saying women using men, like you see so often today, for example, in the strip clubs, what it's become.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Seeking men as just sources of money, just as sources of providing, using them, or projecting past boyfriend wounds, father wounds onto them. Like, it's trendy to hate the patriarchy, and there's certainly a lot wrong with it, and I'm glad that it's being dismantled along with colonialism and some of these outdated systems step by step, absolutely. But if you purely hate on men, you ignore the gift that is the divine masculine.
Mm-hmm.
Men who, what temple is not is men coming searching just for sex or just for bodily gratification. A priestess can spot a man like that a mile away, guys. Okay. And if you're lucky, you'll get a neck rub. Or maybe a hand on your heart with some guided breathing. They're on to that. You know, you got to be really seeking to connect with a deeper part of yourself and your heart. Maybe through your sexuality, yes. But that's not for you to determine. That's for the experienced priestess to determine. How best to guide you to what you need. You know? And if you objectify them just as gorgeous bodies performing for your pleasure, then you're actually depriving yourself of the healing gift that is the divine feminine. So it works with both polarities.
Yep. A priestess does not have to prove. She just is. And you know it when that woman is in the room.
Yep.
And that woman holds an energy field that transforms just by being in that presence. I mean, if they resurrected temples in the honor and reverence of such women like Isis, for example, it's for a reason.
Yep, totally. And, you know, we've seen when people come with the purest intentions and when these ceremonies are performed with the purest intentions, not for the gratification of the practitioner, but for the evolution of the client, you really give in service selflessly. I mean, these are some of the most profound and powerful technologies for personal transformation I've seen. And not just personal transformation is the thing, because they begin to transform the wider society outside of the temple walls too. In ancient cultures, temples were always strategically located, not randomly, over other areas of the city that could use a positive influence from the energy that was generated there.
Yes, absolutely. I also think temple is a place where accountability, a real temple where people can come and experience and be transformed, is filled with that energy. And there's a sovereign reverence and respect for the priestess that is holding space or energetically transmuting such energies. And I can think of times where I've literally witnessed a powerful woman call out childish behavior in men in the middle of temple, and that man was grateful for that, because not every man has been raised to understand such energy or know proper boundaries, and that's exactly what we talk about in
But you guide
spaces.
them in a loving, supportive, not a pointing and shameful way.
Affirm.
You're
This
encouraging
is my
self.
I respect myself, and these are my boundaries.
You're fostering self-awareness, self-responsibility, right? And if they embrace that, then deeper connection. Yeah. History shows us a pattern, Kendall, and what's labeled as taboo or heretical is often the very thing that ends up liberating us. What healing us, moving us forward. What is once shamed is later revealed. We see these trends reverse over time. And I've got a few examples. You know, yesterday's witch is today's natural herbalist. Yesterday's heretic is today's visionary. Yesterday's forbidden pleasure is today's path to wholeness. Like, history is littered with examples of this. The Kama Sutra from the 5th century, went from being a holy book to being treated as smut and pornography by the colonizing British. And now it's revered as one of the world's classics. Burlesque and cabaret were once shamed. Now they're performed in the finest theaters all over the world. And, people are not just revering the performers. A lot of women are becoming performers as a path to self-liberation. Psychedelics and plant medicines, where they're shamed now, just about every ancient culture around the world use them as in their holy practices. History is littered with these examples. Heliocentrism, even in the world of science, right? It was once considered heresy to think anything other than the sun revolves around the earth, the way you see it, rising one place, setting in the other. This crazy idea, that it's us that's turning around the sun, that was heresy once. It's not just magic and mysticism. Science went through its phases of heresy before it became accepted. But history always comes down to one thing, the same conclusion. When we embrace what was once feared is when we make our biggest progress and transformations. Every single time. Yoga, another great example. There's still churches that call it devil worship. Yet it's accepted by 2/3 of the world as such a healthy practice, verified by medicine. Back then we called it Ayurveda. Now we have modern medicine verifying the benefits of meditation and yoga. Once considered devil worship.
Yeah. I get it. I really do. It's easy. It's really easy to label something, anything.
Or someone. Or someone's practice, even though it may not be your own.
Again, it's judgment.
Nor does it have to be.
It's judgment.
It's judgment. And what was the original sin in the Garden of Eden? It wasn't sex. The Bible specifically says in Genesis they were naked and unashamed. Unashamed accompanies naked. That wasn't the sin. It was eating from the tree of knowledge. Knowledge of good and evil, which implies judgment. Sin means to miss the mark, and the original sin was judgment. Dividing things into good, bad, holy and evil, sacrament and sacrilege. Judgment is the original sin, the original missing of the mark. And interestingly enough, that other Latin term in the Bible that doesn't get enough scrutiny, salvation, did not mean somebody's saving you because you're so wretched and you need saving. Salvation, the original Latin meaning, is when the physical unites with the energetic, when the physical body reunites with its spirit. That's the Tantra. That's the holy sacred union. It's not even with another. The other is a guide. The reunification is with yourself.
Yeah.
Your physical and your energetic reconnecting to spirit. That is salvation.
I think this is why it's so important for especially Tantric awakening. This is what we're all about.
We chose that name very deliberately.
It's really important to understand that there's Tantric union within yourself. And then also with another. And that's why it's so important. And, we see this in our coaching and supporting others, but it really has to be you doing very, very, very much so being committed to that internal gnosis, knowing yourself, seeing yourself, because the reality is, beloved, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on this. Yes, to seeing the other, but also it's so important to see yourself, self-validation, self-recognition, self-respect in the relationship to other union. And that's what I feel is really important to say in regards to all of this. Just the value of...
Well, it's both. The quest is ultimately to connect with yourself, but that journey can be made so much easier by connecting with others who are on a similar path, who are of a similar mind, so you can encourage each other, so you can help each other's journey, so you can hold each other accountable. Absolutely yes to connecting with community, and that's exactly what we're building with Tantric Awakening and with our new website, tantricawakening.net. We are building a social media platform where these topics, such as sex, such as psychedelics. I'm going to say them so, the keyword engines flag it all. Magic, witchcraft, right? Where these topics aren't shamed and silenced and censored, right? But where we discuss them openly and we explore how far they can take us. So visit tantricawakening.net. There's also a link below in the description. And plug in. We're very close to launch, so get on the waiting list and we'll let you know when we're ready to open the doors to our online virtual temple and welcome you. Reach out to Kendall if you would like an in-depth astrological reading. She is amazing. You can reach her at the Tantric Mystic _ on Instagram. And you can also get in touch with me at Andre Night Awakening on Instagram. And, check the description below. Our contact info is there. Reach out with your questions. Let us know what you're interested in studying. Let us know if you want to set up an interview, if you're interested in the mystery school, or heck, maybe you're not. Maybe you just want to apply some of these wisdoms to your own life, your own personal relationship. We've even seen corporate people improve their careers, their incomes, their creativity using some of these techniques.
You're very good at that, helping people. I have to give credit where it's due.
Oh, thank you. Like in the corporate world?
Yes.
Bringing magic and witchcraft into the corporate world.
I'm very much passionate. I mean, yes, and also I'm very passionate about priestesses and helping. For example, I'm meeting a priestess tomorrow and helping her understand where the Venusian asteroids really help her understand what kind of archetype of priestess she is here to be. So it's both end. It's just, yeah.
Plug in, you guys.
Plug in.
This isn't meant to be the entire of the conversation. This is meant to inspire you to join the conversation. We are putting a call. We are building the new modern day temples. And we need your help.
Yeah.
If this calls to you, please reach out. And I'm going to close, I think, with this takeaway, and that is, if you've ever felt the pull towards one of these so-called taboos, consider that it really might be your soul calling you back to a practice that is as old as humanity itself. The question isn't really whether they're dangerous. The question is, what is the danger of locking them away? Right?
That makes my inner responsibility feel really strong to be a voice of
we are the ones we've been waiting for. It is our responsibility to save ourselves.
I learned that the hard way. I'm so glad I'm on this side of that juncture and that portal. It's developed so much self-respect. No one can take that away.
Good.
And that's where that maturity and leadership come.
Good.
And that's what we're all about. And we're calling those kinds of people to us.
Yeah. So please reach out.
Yeah, reach out.
And until then, we'll see you next week on Tantric Awakening.
Bye-bye now.